Welcome. Today we dive into the history of a very peculiar group known as the Hashshashins, or the Assassins of Persia. Over the centuries, these men have held an almost mythical status, a deadly shadow that could strike anywhere, anytime. Their tale is an exciting journey filled with intrigue, power plays, and of course, assassinations. Let us immerse ourselves in the fascinating narrative of this group and deadly operatives. It's the late 11th century in Persia. A man named Hassan-i Sabbah, a charismatic and driven individual who has split from the mainstream Ismaili sect of Shia Islam, has formed an organization which he calls the Nizari Ismailis. It's from this group that the Hashshashins would emerge. The name Hashshashin, from which we derive the word assassin, is said to come from the Arabic word hashishiyya, or hashish user. However, the accuracy of this interpretation is heavily debated among historians. Some argue that the term was derogatory, used by their enemies to discredit the sect. Others suggest that the name indicates the group's rumored use of hashish as a recruitment tool or to numb their agents against fear during their deadly missions. The Nizari Ismailis were an esoteric group, their beliefs and rituals shrouded in secrecy. As such, the lore of the Hashshashins is deeply intertwined with tales of religious fanaticism, political dissent, and the covert assassination of key figures in the Middle Eastern power structures. Despite these controversies, it's undeniable that the Hashshashins were highly effective, feared by kings and generals alike, and possessed a significant influence over the region's political landscape. Hassan-i Sabbah, the old man of the mountain, is the mastermind behind the formation of the Hashshashins. Hassan, a highly educated man, found himself drawn toward the teachings of Ismaili Islam. Following a power struggle within the sect, Hassan assumed leadership and made Alamut, a fortress in northern Iran, the headquarters of his organization. Here, he built a society that thrived in seclusion, training his followers in the art of espionage, sabotage, and assassination. Their primary weapon wasn't the sword or the bow, but fear itself. The Hashshashins' method was psychological warfare of the highest order. Their tactics were novel. Rather than storming fortresses or leading armies into open battle, the Hashshashins took a different path. They adopted the role of the unseen, blending into the crowd, striking their targets subtly, and then melting back into the general populace. They went to great lengths to fulfill their assignments, often posing as servants, soldiers, or scholars for months or even years to get close to their targets. The assassinations were typically performed in public places to maximize the psychological impact. Their victims were usually political or religious figures whose deaths would cause maximum disruption. The Hashshashins didn't operate solely on murder and fear. They also excelled in gathering intelligence, which they used for both defensive and offensive purposes. By infiltrating courts and military commands, they could gain detailed knowledge of their enemies, allowing them to strike with precision and maintain the upper hand. This gathering of information also served as an early warning system, enabling them to preempt and thwart potential threats against their organization. Despite their reputation as ruthless killers, the Hashshashins adhered to a strict code of conduct. They did not kill indiscriminately. Every assignment was meticulously planned, and every potential victim was carefully evaluated. Their creed prohibited the killing of innocents, and they often chose to spare those who they felt did not pose a direct threat to their organization or beliefs. A fundamental part of their power lay in their network's structure. They built a series of fortresses throughout Persia and Syria, which served as bases of operations. These fortresses were strategically located, often in remote or difficult-to-reach areas, making them nearly impregnable. From these bases, they could control vast swaths of territory, exerting influence far beyond their actual numbers. The Hashshashins' reign lasted for almost 2 centuries, during which they successfully manipulated the region's politics and maintained their autonomy. However, their downfall was as dramatic as their rise. The Mongol invasion of Persia in the mid-13th century marked the beginning of the end for the Hashshashins. Despite their formidable reputation, they were unable to withstand the Mongol onslaught. The last of their fortresses fell in 1256, and the Hashshashins were effectively wiped out. In the aftermath, the tales of the Hashshashins took on an almost mythical status. Stories spread across Europe, fed by the accounts of returning crusaders and travelers. The tales grew in the telling, and the Hashshashins were portrayed as a sect of mystical, hashish-consuming assassins led by an old man in a mountain fortress, dispatching his agents to murder at will. The reality, of course, was far more nuanced, but these stories captured the imagination of the West, forever imprinting the Hashshashins in the annals of history. Today, the Hashshashins serve as a reminder of a unique period in history where a group of dedicated individuals could alter the course of nations. Their tactics and methods were groundbreaking and continue to influence intelligence agencies and covert operations to this day. From their origins in the Ismaili sect to their dramatic downfall, the story of the Hashshashins, the original assassins of Persia, is one of intrigue, strategy, and power. They may have faded into the shadows of history, but the echoes of their deeds continue to resonate, a chilling testament to their deadly skills and unwavering dedication. Indeed, the Hashshashins were not just a band of murderers. They were pioneers in the fields of espionage and psychological warfare, masters of disguise, manipulation, and subterfuge. From their carefully orchestrated assassinations to their network of mountain fortresses, they left an indelible mark on the history of the Middle East and the world. The Hashshashins' tale is a thrilling and cautionary tale of power, perseverance, and the lengths to which individuals will go to protect their beliefs and their autonomy. Through their story, we gain insight into a complex and intriguing part of our shared human history.